Now, today is World Water Day. It's a day aimed at bringing the attention of nations to the global water crisis and negative repercussions of contaminated water on the human species. A core focus of World Water Day is to support the achievement of Sustainable Development Goal 6, Water and Sanitation for All by 2030. The theme for this year's commemoration is Groundwater, Making Invisible Visible, focuses on exploring, protecting, and sustainably using groundwater, which is central to surviving and adapting to climate change and meeting the needs of a growing population. Now joining me now is the President, Nigeria Water and Sanitation Association, Engineer Peter Onyeri. Thank you so much for being on the program this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Let me start with the lines from the rhyme of the ancient mariner, the Samuel Taylor Coleridge, who says, water everywhere, but not any drop to drink. So we talked about fuel scarcity. We're still talking about it. Now, water scarcity in Nigeria. So what would you say to the fact that there is not enough water for us in this country?
Thank you, and good morning once again. The rhyme of ancient mariner, a beautiful poem. Yes, water everywhere. The whole world, 71% of the world is covered by water. 97% of this 71 is ocean water, salt, which you can hardly use because of high salt content. So it's only 3% that is what we call fresh water, drinkable. And that is the one that we as human beings can access for use. But within this 3% of the fresh water, you have surface water and groundwater. The surface water is about 2.5% of this 3%. The remaining one is groundwater, the water that is found under the earth, within what we call aquifers. So you can see that what actually we are dealing with is just less than 3% of this whole thing that the Asian marine waters. But the thing is, why is it that we cannot access it? We cannot access it because of so many things. Because it is inside the ground, you need a lot of things to get access to it. And that is why it is invisible. The theme of this year's World Water Day says, the invisible, make it visible. Let people know what is inside that ground and the processes it goes through before you can access it and use it. Maybe when they understand the complexities of the mechanism that goes into accessing this water, they will pay more respect to water. Right now, people don't pay respect to water. They just use it anyhow because they don't understand.
How do you mean use it anyhow?
You waste water.
For instance, you're thirsty, you drink it.
Yes.
You want to go to office in the morning, you have your bath. Water. You want to cook, you use water. As a matter of fact, I understand that 80% of our body is also made of water. Virtually everything on this earth is made of water. You made allusion to that. So how do you mean wasting water?
People just waste water. Go outside, even in your house. The water you don't need. You want to take your bath, you probably use more water than you actually require. You can be economical because that is the issue now, is the economics of water use. You go to car wash, they just pour water anyhow. You want to wash your clothes, you just use it anyhow. So what the world is talking about, especially the United Nations, what we call the UN water, is saying use the water that you actually need so that you can save the remaining one. Because the thing is scarce. Right now, because of climate change, population growth, rural-urban drift into the cities, the water, because you tap this fresh water that I'm talking to you about that is inside the ground, in grass, groundwater, you tap it through either boreholes or hand-dug wells. And it takes a lot to do that, technologies. So the issue now is By the time you look at the resources that go into it, power, energy, the machines, the human capacity, by the time you collect all of them, it comes to some sizable number. So by the time you look at all these things and then bring it out, you should give it respect. Don't just use it anyhow.
Okay, talk to us. We'll talk about the borehole of a thing, because there are different eyebrows raised against it. But talk to us about the need to preserve the groundwater all over the world.
Yes. The need
to preserve groundwater all over the world.
Right now, in fact, thank you for that question. At the turn of the century, around 2000, the United Nations predicted that very soon, that if Africa continues the way it was going with the population growth, that by 2050 there was going to be water crisis. And 2015 that there are going to be water crisis in Africa. And that by 2025, if nothing is done, there's going to be an emergency. By 2025, that's in 3 years' time. Funny enough, by 2018, our president, realizing the situation with water, declared that emergency. Right now, we are in a state of emergency on water in Nigeria. There's hardly water anywhere. Go to the cities, go to even your Lagos here. Go to many of the major urban centers. Because the distribution of water is special. If you go to the villages, maybe you should be able to get water, boreholes, but scattered. But in Lagos here, you see boreholes everywhere. So the abstraction is rapid. They cannot replenish as fast as you extract. So with the result that the thing became scarce. Go out and you see people, you see the water all over the place.
We've got Water Corporation, who also dispenses water to different houses. But it appears that it's not regular. Even some of the roads that are being constructed, some of these pipes, got busted, and they're not fixed back so that people will have house. Is that intentional?
And it can't be intentional. You heard me when I say water crisis. In fact, for some of us in the industry, in the development, when they say water crisis, they are referring to water scarcity. In other words, water is not enough for the population to use. But we have aligned the terminology of water crisis to mean that there is a crisis in the industry. The technology of extraction is not there. Human capacity is very, very low.
I need to understand, what you're actually driving at. When you say water scarcity and the need to get water, it's not really there for us. I know for a fact that we've not had, power supply for some time, and it's difficult for us to draw water from the borehole. Are you referring to that? Or are you saying that the water itself is not in abundance of quantity?
It's not enough to meet the needs that it should serve.
Not enough to meet
it.
Okay, so there is high degree of borehole proliferation in the country. There is hardly any residential house, just like you mentioned, office, business building that don't have constructed borehole in major Nigerian cities. But borehole in itself can be very,
tricky.
And it can be I'm looking for that word, but can have a negative impact on the society, on the environment. Is it possible?
Yes.
Because of different holes here and there?
Yes. There's something we call subsidence. Because this water that you attempt to extract through boreholes and pumps are found in what we call aquifers, in pores, in the sand, in the rocks inside the ground. When you pull it out, because how did the water get in there in the first place? Through rainfall. And when the rain falls on the surface of the ground, it percolates into the ground. And then hangs there by the time it gets to a bed, through which it cannot go down again. It hangs there. So when you continue to extract, it's like a water that you have in a cup. At a certain time, the water will finish. And that is why in some places, after drilling a borehole, after some time, you say you cannot get water again. So with a high concentration of boreholes, in other words, the density is high in the major urban cities. Population is high. Lagos is growing at a population rate of about 3.5 every year. Every year. People troop in, go to Abuja. Within the same area, you are extracting. So there's pressure.
But I think the water cycle, when you use water, get into the ground, if you have stagnant water somewhere, the sun, drains the water, takes the water into the sky, and then comes back in form of rain. I think it's a cyclical thing, and it shouldn't stop.
Climate change has disrupted all those things.
So where did those water go?
Climate change has disrupted all those things. The rains you used to know are no more like that. In fact, climate change, and that is why the whole world is running helter-skelter about climate change, because the impact is massive. It's affecting the water cycle you are talking about. But essentially, the World Water Day is to draw attention of people to the fact that this thing that you take for granted, that you think is a natural element, takes a lot of resources to bring it to the point where you want to use it. I was telling somebody just outside the studio before I came in, I spend almost 100,000 on drinking water in my house.
Daily, monthly, yearly?
A month. 100,000. And that because I did due diligence. I computed it. One bottle of the thing you hang on, I can publicize them. Seaway or Lasena.
No, don't.
Yeah.
Just talk about
I took permission.
Fresh water.
So 6,650 naira a bottle. And I take 1.5 bottles every day in the house. Work it out over 30 days. You are getting to about 19,000 over 1 month. So, and that is because I can afford it. There are a lot of people who cannot afford it. So because they cannot afford it, they go to other sources of water. Are you getting that?
Yes.
Either they take what you call pure water, and many of those pure water are not pure. They are contaminated. So the point I'm making is that poverty is also a problem. Many people cannot afford it the way I can afford it. Already it's a pressure on my own personal economy.
So if you go to countries like the East African region, for instance, Somalia, they have been badly affected by droughts.
Yes.
And it's about 3 years now that they've seen what is called real rain, proper rain. Now, what we had this morning seriously was a blessing. But in Somalia, for instance, they don't have it. And more than 6,000 people have moved away from their houses, looking for greener pastures. So much so that humanitarian aids that they got, they really don't have it again. So is this drought, exclusive to certain climates, or is it something that can spread across the world?
Yes, like I said, the issue of water crisis is global. But in some places it is worse, like the Somalia I talked about. And earlier I told you that this thing is special. If you take Nigeria, for example, the situation in the far north is not exactly the situation in some places in the south. And if you come even in Lagos here, the situation in Surulere or Ikeja is not the same thing as you may find in somewhere around the Ijede in Ikorodu because of the population density. So it is spread across that way. But having said that, the issue is that people must realize that it takes a lot to get this water to the quality that you should take. People take a lot of things they call water that are not really water, a lot of contaminants. Like I was saying outside, there's a lot of infertility problems in Nigeria today. Very pervasive. It's been traced to bad water. In fact, 80% of diseases in the world are traceable to waterborne diseases.
Waterborne diseases. That's one of the reasons I brought up the issue of borehole in different houses.
Yes.
And we know that some of these boreholes can be contaminated by septic tanks, septic,
that's right.
being sunk into the earth. Right. So what should we do?
Yes.
You've talked about us, preserving the water that we have, being being prudent in using them, and also what are the things that we need to do, the measures that we need to put in place to ensure this? Because constitutionally, the local government is empowered to provide water for the people in the locality, but this, we talked about it. So what should we be doing individually?
Yes, slight correction. The structure for water management in Nigeria resides at the federal level.
Okay.
it is the federal government that is in charge of water resources. The structures of the states and the local government are just taken off from the federal. But having said that, I represent the body.
I was actually going to say sanitation responsibilities by the local government.
I will come to that.
Makes sense.
I represent a body called Nigerian Water and Sanitation Association.
Yeah.
A body of professionals and businessmen, and of course women, in the water and sanitation and hygiene industry in Nigeria. What do? We support government because accountability relies on the federal government. We support them, provide them essentially with human capacity by training people, and then provision of technology. A lot of our members are in the business of marketing pumps, marketing tanks, marketing water pipes, all those things that go into extraction of this groundwater. The question you ask is, how do we now help the situation? NIWASA is there conducting, because two major problems have been really identified. Lack of adequate technology to do the extraction in the face of the challenges we are talking about.
Lack of adequate technology to do the extraction from the ground, from the earth.
Because it's the invisible thing that is at the ground. The groundwater, that is what we use.
Different from the boreholes that we have.
The borehole, you are trying to drill into the groundwater.
Right. Okay.
You can also use surface water from the rivers and the rest of it. That is surface water for irrigation and the rest of it. Right. But again, it is not all water that you pull from rivers that are usable. You must do tests to know which crop needs what. But again, do we do that? So NIWASA helps in building human capacity and then providing this technology as they unfold to make this thing easy to do. A lot of the boreholes that you see around are badly constructed. All sorts of people go into borehole drilling, telling you that they're experts. They are not really experts. They are not trained in the basics. So when they construct the borehole very poorly, or the septic tank, you now see viruses and other bacteria filtering it from the outside walls into the water system, and then people take it. The proper thing is that you should conduct tests, but how many people even know that there are labs anywhere? In other words, the point I'm making is that it is really a crisis. But organizations like NIWASA, in collaboration with a lot of other groups that are into water, the United Nations is crying because of what they are looking at in Africa. The whole thing is coming to a head, and yes, people don't see that because it is invisible.
So how do you get this? How do you drive on this message? Into the consciousness of people? Is it that you go to house? Just like we used to have those who are into sanitation, we used to do going from house to house. Is that the measure that has been done, or is it just coming to television, radio, and all the media platforms to reach out to them?
Advocacy is a major part of our role function. Like I'm here now, between now and 5, 6 o'clock in the evening, I'll be hopping from one television house to radio to conferences. Some of our members are in Abuja, trying to pass the message. So we advocate, connect with government, we partner with all other groups, and find a way either through magazines or through. During the last hand washing day 2021, we were visiting schools to talk with schools management to see how children wash their hand, because that is one source, hygiene, through which this contaminants enter the system.
But if you go to schools, ideally it's meant to be taught in schools, social sciences, home economics and all that. But do you go to marketplaces?
Yes.
When you enter some markets, even though the government is trying to rehabilitate some of these markets, you go to some markets, you want to match step your feet into murky water.
Beautiful question. In the last one we did, we had to leave the school system, even though there's a significance of going to school, and go into some markets. out of the 10 people we asked, only one person said he knew something about hand washing. To say hand washing day, they've never heard. In other words, education is a major issue. And then poverty. People are trying to find where to eat, and then you are telling them to wash hands. So when the world says there's a crisis, and our own president said there is a crisis, in fact, he went beyond the crisis to say there's already an emergency by 2018. Are you getting that? So the question now is, do people even know that there's a crisis? They hardly know. And that is why we are saying the invisible must be made visible. Let people know that they are sitting on a keg of gunpowder. Water drives instability, social conflicts.
Right.
All sorts of problems are traceable to water.
So that's it. More reason a lot of people need to, pay more attention to the kind of water they. They also need to test the water that comes out from their own boreholes.
Do they have the money to test? Where are the labs?
Aren't this thing done for free? By the government? Is it something that one can do? Take your water, go to the laboratory.
Yeah, because it's you. Self-protection, preservation first. But we must be factual about it. There's poverty. And the United Nations that focuses on water under SDG 6 recognizes the fact that Africa, being poverty-stricken, is challenged. But even at that, the challenge of water also exacerbates the issue of poverty.
Well, so
and makes it more complex. We can talk about water and water and water and water. It's a crisis situation. It's an emergency.
Absolutely. The fact that it didn't even rain for a long time, it's in itself a crisis. So I really appreciate you for advancing this advocacy, here and there. President, Nigeria Water and Sanitation Association, Engineer Peter Onyeri. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much
for that deep insight.
Thank you. Thank you.